Okay, we're back and we're going to see how to do our second operation. We just finished seeing how to do the drilling operation. If you did the drilling operation at a previous time and then you went and logged out and did something else, and now you're coming back and you just started up the PathPilot Hub again, so now what we're going to do is we're going to be going back over to the Conversational tab, and we're actually going to be going to a face operation. And with the face operation, what we're going to be doing is we're going to use tool 4. And that was the end mill that we put into our tool table before. For doing this, if we look at our tool table that we've been using all along, our tool table says that for tool 4, which is this tool right here, we can go 10,000 RPMs. It can cut as deep as 0.6 inches, taking off a radial depth of cut, in other words, the sidewards depth of cut of 0.0275, and it can accomplish a surface speed, or inches per minute, I should say, not surface speed, inches per minute of 60 inches per minute. Let's go back to our drawing and see just what we're doing with this facing operation. For facing, we're going to come along and we're going to remove the entire top of our rough piece of material. And this rough piece of material is actually 3.6 inches long. It's just a little bit longer than our finished part will be. It is actually 1.5 inches wide, just a little bit wider than our finished part will be. And it is twice as thick as our finished part will be. That's why we're going to remove just basically what amounts to a skim pass off the top. We're only removing 50 thousandths off the top because we want more meat near the bottom to help hold this piece in the vise. So we need to plan to take a 50 thousandths depth of cut across a piece that's 3.6 inches long and 1.5 inches wide. Let's jump over to PathPilot to see how that goes. Okay, so as we said before, we're going to go 10,000 RPMs. And feed rate, how fast we want this thing to go. We said that we could do 60 for its feed rate. Z feed rate, how fast we want to plunge it down into the material. It's on 13.5 right there. That's fine. We're not actually plunging down into material with this, so it's not that big of a deal. Z clearance, how high do we want to stay above our part to do any X or Y moves when we're not actually cutting? Half an inch above that would be just fine. I am going to change my name here to just facing. Okay, now remember, everything is measured from the very center of our rough stock, or of our finished stock. So that means that if we're actually going to be surfacing a piece that is 3.6 inches long, we're going to have half of that to the left-hand side. So that's 1.80 inches is where it's going to start over on the far left, and it's going to end up at 1.8 on the far right. Towards the back of center, again, this piece of material is 1.5 inches wide, so that's going to be 0.75, that's a positive value, 0.75 towards the back, and that's going to be negative 0.75 towards the front. And Z start. So what is the height above our raw material where we're going to start cutting? Well, it is the top surface of the raw material. That's where we're going to start cutting. So we're going to say 0. We want everything measured from 0 at the top surface of our material. Okay, well, where do we want to end up? At the most we're going to take up, how deep down are we? And that's going to be 0.05. Oops. Actually, not just 0.05, but I want to make sure that that is a negative 0.05. Okay, and then it's depth of cut. How deep do we want each pass to go? Well, if we looked in that tool table, what it said is that it could cut 0.6 inches deep at a particular step over. And in this case, we're going nowhere near that deep. We're going 0.05. So that's less than 10% of that. So we're going to do this all in one level. So we want a 0.05 depth of cut. The last thing that's going to ask us to do is the step over. So each pass, how far over do we want that little 1/4 inch bit to move? And, you know, we could just stay really, really conservative and say that 0.0275 that we saw on our tool table. We can go a little bit more and just say 0.1. So that is, if we click on this, it'll say, hey, that step over is 40% of the tool diameter. Well, that sounds fine. All of this, though, is perfect. We're all good to go for our facing operation. So my next thing is I'm going to go post to file, and I want to just double check that I'm in the right folder. If I click on home here, you can see that if I double click on virtual path pilot files, remember, you always have to have it in the virtual path pilots file. I'm going to go to bearing plate, and I'm going to call that, it's already named up there, it says facing, so I'm going to click on save. And it thinks about it, and then it takes us to this view once again. Now, let's just inspect that a little bit. I am going to want you to take a screenshot of this, but we're going to right mouse click over here, and we're going to go to ISO view. And so that shows me that we're actually cutting just one pass, in other words, one depth, but you see how it spirals in over and over and over again. Fine. What I want you to do at this point is you're going to be clicking on print screen, and so that way you can save your evidence that you completed this, and you will then be going to your Google Doc, and you would say facing, and Control V. And so you paste that in there. Okay, so that is all of the facing operation. I'm going to go ahead and stop there for now. Our next one will be about doing the profile cut. Okay, our hole drilling cycle is done. That was just to provide a clearance hole for later operations. Our next step is to face the material, and we're using a 1/4 inch 3-flute end mill for doing this. That facing operation is just going to remove 0.05 inches from the top of the material. Now I'm going to press cycle start. I have the coolant off so you can see what's happening here. The bit's lowering down to the material, and it's only going to be going over a 0.1 inch step. So it's not quite cutting yet. Maybe on this next pass around it'll start cutting. I'll turn the coolant back on if I need to. You can see it's just started cutting there. It'll continue cutting on this for the rest of the part.